Welcome back to Isrock's Movie Reviews, and this is going to be episode 43. We're still talking about Spider-Man No Way Home, and this, I've been looking forward to it, is the spoiler review. Okay, I'm letting you guys know this is a spoiler review. So if you don't want to be spoiled, you can check out my last review. I give you my input, and my input still hasn't changed. This movie was fucking epic. This movie was the movie to see. It's crazy how it came out now at Christmas time, but it coincides with everything else that you've been watching, even with the Marvel shows. And we're going to speak a lot about that in depth. So once again, this is your spoiler review. Let's get straight into it. Man, this movie was so epic. This movie basically, it starts off right from where Far From Home left off. And if you didn't watch Far From Home, well, I'm going to spoil that for you also, okay? Especially the ending. Basically, Peter Parker, he's revealed through a monitor where Jonah Jameson, crazy, is introduced into the world. And he no longer has his newspaper. You can tell that he's doing the Daily Bugle through some kind of Facebook channel. And he still has this disdain and hatred for Peter Parker, mainly Spider-Man. And boom, as Spider-Man and MJ are in that last scene of Far From Home, and he drops off in the street, he sees on the screen his face. He sees that a mob of people are, not really necessarily going to attack MJ, but, they mobbing her and asking her so many questions. Oh, do you really know Spider-Man? Do you know Peter Parker? Do you see your boyfriend? He goes, he swoops her down. You're going to see this scene in the trailer when he goes, picks her up, and he slings right down through the subway, and they get away. Man, this movie's crazy just even talking about it again. So now they go, and they go straight to his apartment. Happy's there having an argument with Ame. It seems like their romance is over. They broke up, basically. But Happy is still trying to, find the light. But, Ame's not having it. She's like, it's over. And this is when the comedic elements come in. You need it, because the way the film starts, it starts off perfect, in my opinion, because you have this chaos that's going on around Peter Parker, and then he gets to the house, and there's a different kind of chaos, and they don't know exactly what's going on until they turn on the TV, and boom, you see what's going on. There's helicopters outside the apartment building. The cops want to get into the apartment, start questioning everybody. Eventually they do so. He ends up getting a lawyer, going to the precinct. Lo and behold, guess who's his lawyer? None other than Charlie Cox, Daredevil himself, Matt Murdock. And they were on a table in the house talking, and man, somebody throws a brick through the window, and he catches it. And they look at him, because if you don't know the Daredevil character, he's blind. Even though his other abilities are heightened and he has a great sense of things around him, he catches it like nothing. They look at him like, who the hell is this guy, right? We no longer see him in the movie, but that was a great Easter egg, knowing that he's in the universe. So now, Peter's still struggling, There's a subplot where, obviously this is the last year of high school and they're trying to get into college. They all want to go to MIT, which is, in real life, it's one of the best schools in the world, right? They all get letters, and they don't get accepted because of the situation that's going on. So Peter Parker feels bad for them, and eventually comes to the conclusion where, I gotta go see Doctor Strange. Maybe because he could reverse it. We come to find out, we go to the Sanatorium, and it's frozen inside. The way they explain this is there was a spell went wrong, and in a cold area, Siberia somewhere, and the cold got into the Sanctorium. So that was their explanation. Here we find out that Doctor Strange is no longer the Emperor Supreme. It's Wong, actually. And the scene is crazy. What you saw in the trailer didn't happen in the movie. He didn't wink, or Wong didn't even disagree. He just said, he basically gave his blessings for not to do the curse, but if he went along and did the curse, that he had no part of it. So Doctor Strange agrees. He goes with Peter Parker downstairs to the basement area where you see in the trailer, and he starts to perform basically the curse. And as Peter Parker keeps trying to change it, you could tell the dimension opens up. He captures it. He's able to maintain it. But a lot of things occur now. The multiverse is definitely into effect, right? Different dimensions start to open. So you get a scene where you thought the spell worked after Peter Parker and Doctor Strange had that conversation, and he goes out and finds out that his people are still not able to get into MIT. So he goes, finds out that there was a lady that he could speak to through Flash, because Flash got into MIT, and Flash Thompson, who in this movie is annoying, and he wants to be Peter Parker's best friend so bad. And they dyed his hair in this one, don't know why. So Peter Parker finds out that the woman is going to the airport and actually slinks his way to the highway. And this is where you see the introduction of Doctor Strange. And boom, this awesome fight occurs on the highway, then eventually under the highway, as he's trying to talk to this big person in MIT, so that way, they can try to negotiate something in which his friends can obviously get a chance to go to the school. And he ends up saving this lady. This lady towards the end, agrees to try her best to get them into the school. But prior to that, this fight is so epic between Dr. Octopus and Peter Parker, because Dr. Octopus believes that Peter Parker is the Peter Parker from 2002. And it comes to find out it's not. So when his tentacles touch our Tom Holland Spider-Man, don't forget that's nanotech. So it takes over, the nanotech of Peter Parker takes over the tentacles of Dr. Octopus. And this is where Spider-Man was able to override the tentacles, and he was able to control them. That's how they captured Dr. Octopus. Before they actually capture Dr. Octopus, the Green Goblin comes out of nowhere on the highway and drops one of those pumpkin bombs, and you can hear his laughter. And then, you're back in the Sanctorium. Come to find out, Doctor Strange captured a few of them already, and tells Peter that there's a lot of them left, because he's trying to help Peter find. He's like, when we did this curse, there's people that are coming into the universe, and all hell breaks loose. They end up finding the villains pretty quick. Electro, Sandman, the Lizard, and they get all captured pretty quick in the movie. And there's a scene where they're all in the basement in the Sanctorium, and the reason they were able to get loose is because Peter Parker had the option of, he could just send them back with the box that you see in the trailer. Can't tell you the name of it now, but there's a way that you press the button in the box and all the guys that came into the universe will go back to their original universe, or you could go ahead and cure them. And Spider-Man disagrees with Doctor Strange and decides to go against him. There's a battle in the mirror dimension. Spider-Man outwits him by using math somewhere, somehow. And Doctor Strange ends up there for the majority of the movie until the final scene. And this is where Peter Parker eventually takes the villains, trusting them, takes them to Happy's apartment because they can no longer go to his apartment. The cops are swarming the place and it's just uncomfortable to live in. And all hell breaks loose there, you know? Norman Osborn in this movie, William Dafoe playing him, was very different than what you saw in 2002. 2002 was very campy, a little surreal, right? But in this movie, he outdid himself. He has such a charisma, and don't forget he's playing those dual roles. And eventually he turns on Peter, resulting in majority of them turning. And unfortunately, this is where, you know, things go for the worst. Ame ends up getting injured severely, and she ends up succumbing to her injuries, dies. This tears Peter Parker apart. But this is when the spicy stuff starts to happen. He ends up getting lost. You know, it's that to love someone like he did, and that was the only person he really had. And throughout this Spider-Man trilogy, Peter Parker, it's just it's like he lost Spider-Man. He loses 5 years because of the blip, you know, tragedy after tragedy. And now he loses the only person he actually really, really, really loved, the woman that raised him. And so he gets lost for a while. Ned and MJ end up, you know, pondering like, damn, he's missing. Where can he be? And then Ned, realizing that he has the ring of Doctor Strange, somehow develops a portal. And they're like, okay, let's try this. So they, in their minds, they're gonna start looking for Peter. And they thought they hit it in one shot, but they don't. He tries it, boom. The portal actually opens. They see Spider-Man. It's not the Spider-Man that they think. Lord and behold, it's Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. Epic. Andrew Garfield Spider-Man comes through the hall. They're looking at him like, who are you? I'm Spider-Man. Takes off his mask, introduces himself as Peter Parker. They're very skeptical. And then Zendaya and him have a banter. They go back and forth. She's like, prove yourself. He ends up walking on the walls. And then, boom, they do it again. We see this guy. Comes closer, comes through the portal. It's Tobey Maguire. Epic. And tells them that he's also Peter Parker, but from a different dimension. That they've been here ever since the curse. And they're like, why are we here? You know? And coming to find out that not only the villains came to this universe, but everything from those universes came, and Peter Parkers are here. This movie was epic. So now they go, eventually they find Peter. He's on top of his old high school. And right there is when they introduce him to the Spider-Man, which is a very emotional moment. And from there on, it's just epic scene after epic scene. They fight the main villains. You know, they don't do so well in the beginning, you know, because the other two Spider-Men aren't familiar working as a team until Tom Holland Spider-Man teams them up and says, look, I was part of a team, I was part of the Avengers. They're like, Avengers? Who are they? And they don't even know. Crazy. And here's where you see the dynamic between all three Spider-Mans. This was something to see on screen. I was shocked with the chemistry between all three of them. Like, it was really crazy to see. Tobey Maguire lit up the screen with his charisma. Even if he didn't say nothing, his eyes. in the trailer, there's a scene where you see MJ eventually falls, and Tom Holland actually goes to save her, but the Green Goblin picks him up and throws him across the Statue of Liberty, and Tobey Maguire is occupied, and Andrew Garfield is the one to save her. And he able to save her, and when he actually lands on the ground, he just looks at her, and you could tell the emotion that he displayed, and he starts to cry because this was a very similar moment to The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and he couldn't save Gwen Stacy. You know, this movie shocked the hell out of me with the emotions and the suspense in many ways. Then this leads us to the ultimate fight between Tom Holland Spider-Man and Green Goblin in the end, after all the villains are caught. The fighting in this movie was visceral. Tom Holland really puts a beating on Green Goblin, like really. Not only in the apartment building, but this final scene. And prior to this final scene, we get an Easter egg also, because Jamie Foxx is funny. After his electricity is taken away from him, you know, him and Andrew Garfield have a banter, and he's like, I wish there was a black Spider-Man in this universe. And they laugh. Andrew Garfield nods his head, you know, referencing there might be a Miles Morales in the future. And we know Miles Morales is in the universe because of Homecoming. And Aaron, the Prowler, when he mentions in a deleted scene, Miles, can you come pick me up? And we all know that that's his uncle, you know, but it's just a matter of when. You know, Sony owns the rights to him, so they weren't gonna let it out that easy, especially with the Spider-Verse Part 2 coming out soon. But so we get to this last scene, and Spider-Man almost decapitates the Green Goblin. Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, gets in the way and saves Green Goblin. Pretty much saves Tom Holland's Peter Parker from killing someone, you know, because that's exactly what he wanted to do. And while he held the glider, because he was gonna decapitate him with the glider, as he grabs it and about to put it down, the Green Goblin knifes him up, puts a sword right through his arm. And this was crazy. With all this happening, they still managed to save the Green Goblin. Andrew Garfield throws this serum that'll change Green Goblin's bipolar ass, and eventually it works. And you know, he does that thing he does. He wakes up as the other person, as the conscious one, and he's like, "What did I do?" And just, you know, it's crazy. Green Goblin's character really, he sold it. And then finally he goes to Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange tells him, you know, there's a way that we could reverse this, but nobody's gonna know who you are, ever. They agree. He says his goodbyes to Ned, to the two Spider-Men, and to ultimately MJ. They have an emotional moment, and the spell is done. Come to find out in the end, Ned and MJ, they get accepted to MIT. MJ's working in the donut shop. Peter Parker comes in, gets a coffee. She doesn't recognize him. Ned is far off, eating a donut on his phone. They have a brief, I'm not gonna say conversation, but they have a brief back and forth. And Peter Parker's Tom Holland realizes that she has the Band-Aid from the accident. She doesn't remember anything. And then we cut to him saying goodbye. And then it cut to him going into his own apartment. It looks dingy. At this moment, we don't know if he's working or not. But then you see a college sweater on his bed. And you see him sewing up his own new uniform. And the new uniform happens to be the classic Spider-Man uniform with the bright blue and the red. And then you see him, doing his whipping through the city. And if you guys are catching up with the Hawkeye series, there's a scene in the end of the movie where he goes. And he actually goes right through Rockefeller Center. I thought that was interesting. And it's Christmas time. So it's crazy the way the movie played, because it's Christmas time currently in the Hawkeye series. So I wanted to see how that was gonna play. And then we cut to the end credit scene, which is Tom Hardy in a bar having a conversation with basically himself. And he's astonished because he's having a conversation with the bartender also. And they're speaking about how there's heroes that exist in this world. He thought he was the only one that existed. And he gets like teleported. And while he gets teleported, a piece of the symbiote stays on Earth, or actually at that bar, wherever he was. Then it cuts off. And then obviously the second credit scene is a brief trailer to the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. And that looks like it's gonna be promising. It's gonna be the first scary horror film in the Marvel Universe. Man, this movie left me without words. This is definitely a must watch. You have to watch it multiple times because you're gonna miss certain Easter eggs. Here you actually find out too. There's a scene where Green Goblin is speaking and he's like, yeah, try to go back to my house in this current universe, and someone lives there already. Who do you think it is? The Kingpin. Think about it, they introduced Daredevil in this movie. Tony sold the building. We didn't know who he sold the building to. We thought it was gonna be Oscorp. It's not. Could have been the Baxter building, but I doubt that. Even though we have Fantastic Four coming soon, but it has to be Kingpin. This movie was finite. I'm just surprised that Scorpion wasn't included in the movie because he was teased in the prior film. We already know Morbius down the pipe is coming. What are they gonna do with the Vulture? But please go watch that movie. Leave a comment below once you see it. And do not see the spoiler review where I'm saying my prior review. You guys definitely go check out this movie. Enjoy. I'm not even gonna rate it. This is out this world. 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10. And you guys give me your rating when you see it. All right? If you like this video, hit that like button. Hit that notification button. Please subscribe. To the next one. Peace.